Hey guys, welcome back to Monday Night Pod. My name is Jeremy Jacobowitz. I'm here with my tag team partner, Adam Welby. Yes, and this is the podcast all about the Monday Night Wars, the battles between WWF Raw, WCW Nitro. On this podcast, we go back in time. We re-review every single battle to try and determine who really should have won the Monday Night Wars. Adam, why should people listen to what we have to say?
When you live vicariously through our viewing, you are still viewing wrestling shows that have full audiences attendance at their live recordings. And I think that is a whole new level of energy that everybody is desperately missing right now. And you are able to, if you can't, make the time to watch 3 hours of old school 1996 wrestling a week, you're able to get that through us. So why wouldn't you want to do it?
Yeah, well, that's a good answer. I will say another answer is that we both used to work at WWE. We both used to work in a WWE tape library. Our jobs are to watch all of wrestling, so we've watched more wrestling than you, I guarantee it. Because we've seen stuff that is not on the network, not anywhere, and probably will never be seen again. I'm excited.
We were paid to watch more wrestling than you.
We were definitely paid that. Week 3 being on YouTube, so you can look at our beautiful faces. This is new. We're Zooming. If you're listening to us on podcasts, you can get it on all podcasting platforms. Wherever you're listening to that, leave a 5-star review, subscribe, blah, 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 all that shit. Find us on YouTube where these videos are going. Let's Plays, vlogs, other videos coming soon. Instagram Monday Night Pod, Twitter Monday Night Pod. Let us know what you think about the show. Or just talk wrestling. WrestleMania was last weekend. Do you have any quick thoughts? I already forgot that it was last weekend, but since we didn't talk about it last week, any quick thoughts on WrestleMania?
Watched the Firefly Funhouse match 4 times now, and it is one of my favorite things that professional wrestling has ever produced. I can't wait to see what they decide to do with that whole concept, because my heart says that there's so much potential there, and my brain says they're going to burn it in 4 months. We'll be tired of them. Because, it really worked because it was wrestling's at its best when it's real, when there's real elements to it. And some of the stuff they were digging into about John Cena is like real stuff that we've never really seen before. And, his insecurities about being alone, the fact that also he's actually been a bully his entire career, all this kind of stuff. And man, I love when he's punching down on him, and they're cutting together with the Cena sucks, and then he's punching Cena sucks. All that's it's so good. Definitely better than the Boneyard match, which was good. But if you're gonna go, one on one.
Well, that's why they were separated by 2 nights, which I thought was nice. Both the true highlights of WrestleMania. I think there was other good stuff in there for sure. Some it's all weird, but some more weird stuff in there. We didn't need 19 matches. Half of them we could have cut out anyway. I loved it.
We're trash.
Right. I will say, I think the way to do, I think they're going to be smart only because I believe that they learned from the lesson from overexposing what made Bray Wyatt so great in the first place. You can't give him the championship because he cannot be on the show every single week doing that. I think they're going to keep him, although the SmackDown is a little different. I think they're going to try and keep him away from the title picture, or at least giving him the belt and having these spaced out. If you want to do the big 4, having these kind of matches, okay. If you just want to make sure they make sense, if he is going after Braun, at least that storyline sort of makes sense in connecting the dots of him going back in his past. Okay. I don't ever want to see him. I don't ever want to see him wrestle in a real wrestling match ever again.
I want it to be very, very spaced out if it does, and I want them to carefully approach him. Going through people from his past who have wronged him. We could have something really interesting with Randy Orton at some point. We could have something. Who knows if they ever touch Goldberg, but obviously you could have something interesting with Roman Reigns when it comes to that. Of course, that's probably the guy they're going to have beat him, but. Whatever. I've been saying that for a year, and it hasn't happened yet. I don't want to be one of those guys when it finally happens. I'm going to be like, see, I told you it happened.
But other than that, I think those 2 things saved WrestleMania. I think we all sort of left with a great feeling. Drew winning was amazing. Not probably the best match. That match in front of a crowd would have been a million times better. The Braun thing, I was against it, but you know what? The more I thought about it, it makes sense. They're not in a time where they're going to have to now save a little bit of money. the last thing you want to do is be spending $1 billion on Goldberg. So you had to get the title off of him. Who else is left on SmackDown to give that title to?
Goldberg
really
without, and Goldberg without an audience reaction is not going to be something that works at all.
Right.
Like, especially old Goldberg.
Oh, old meaning he's old in age, not old like in 90s Goldberg.
No, yeah. I mean, Oldberg is what we'll call him now.
Okay. I don't know. He's doing the same shit. He's better at it now than he was 20 years ago, so whatever.
But without the audience there, that's kind of like, think what is, as much as I love him, like, what does an Orange Cassidy thing look like without an audience there to, right, to sell it? You need Goldberg. You need everyone chanting for Goldberg. You need the pops for the spear and stuff like that. It's different.
I 100% agree.
And I would not be against even though you said there were a couple matches that didn't need to be on there, like the Raw Tag Team Championship match.
That was
my
nice
gosh.
Fun. Why did Natalia have to have a WrestleMania match?
Well, Becky and Shayna sucked ass. But every big time Becky match kind of underdelivers, so I'm not shocked there.
I just didn't like the ending. I don't know how Becky wins that. What is the purpose of Becky winning it? Like that, it hurts Shayna. It hurts the story. It makes no sense. It doesn't lead to anything. Match was fine.
That match should have been a blood feud. It wasn't the payoff that I was expecting, and.
Well, the finish certainly wasn't a payoff, which you would expect them to continue that story. Or they're let's put this one in a holding pattern for later. Which, if that's the reasoning, fair.
To the triple threat last year payoff either. Ronda both shoulders off of the mat getting pinned.
Well, that was a botch, Adam.
Yeah, but it was still a roll-up. It's still a roll-up finish on Ronda Rousey, but whatever. I would be down for them to, if they're going to keep the cards this fat, I think 2 nights is a great thing.
Much easier for me to get through.
Yeah.
And you could have true, real 2 main events now. You don't have to pretend like it's the main event, even though it's number 2 on the card or some stupid shit. You could have 2 title matches. You could have 2 main events or whatever you think the main events should be that year.
Sure, that there's a whole nother, world of complication when it comes to that, when you're talking about booking the arena itself and getting the whole catering staffs and everything.
It costs a lot of money, but if you're going to sell double the tickets and double the merch and double the shit at the stadiums, I just think it's more logistics. But if they're there anyway, I can't imagine something else is booked. So next year they're going to be at the new Rams Stadium in LA. There's not like anything else is booked there Saturday.
Right, yeah.
More logistics is just like, do you officially then not have an NXT show that weekend? Because what do? You have Hall of Fame. You have Friday night has to be SmackDown. You have WrestleMania Saturday, WrestleMania Sunday, Raw Monday. What do you do with the Hall of Fame? And then what do you do with NXT? I'm okay with NXT not having a proper show that weekend. I kind of like when they're off on their own rather than piggybacking off of a pay-per-view. So I'm okay with that. And you incorporate an NXT match sort of like the way we saw it this year, which was they cherry-picked one of them and they had that be part of WrestleMania if it's going to be 2 weeks. Or 2 days.
The Charlotte match?
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't even think of that one as an NXT match, though, because that was a Charlotte match.
The NXT Women's Championship match.
No, I get it. But, like, taken by the Royal Rumble winner and all that stuff, like, if it was Keith Lee defending the North American title, then maybe I'd feel differently about it. Or,
what if he was defending it against Cesaro? Would you feel differently about him?
Did Cesaro win the Royal Rumble to get that opportunity?
Maybe
it's not a straight. Yeah, I know. Maybe. Wouldn't it be nice? While we're fantasy booking, wouldn't it be wonderful?
True. All right, want to get to these shows.
We can definitely get in our time machine.
All right, let's do it. Let's go to July 22nd, 1996. Adam, this is Raw number 169. We are at the Key Arena in Seattle, Washington. And just in case you didn't know that, the first 2 minutes are spent on Seattle B-roll of Vince just like jerking off the city of Seattle, Washington. Very odd. They did a lot of this during this time period, and it was sort of a concession with the tourism boards usually. My guess is they got some sort of tax break for filming there if they promote the city enough. So it's like, just fucking get out of the way. Hey, we're in Seattle.
It's but you know what? It does offer a little bit more of a feeling like when Nitro was doing their big B-roll openings and giving your show
But
a
they
little more
would say
expensive
like, hey,
feeling. So come on.
but yeah, but that thing was like 10 seconds of like, oh, we're live in Atlanta, Georgia. This was 2 minutes of Vince being like, Seattle, the most beautiful city in all of America.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm not saying it was as effective. But yeah, when they started showing just like B-roll of people walking around on the streets, I was like, oh boy, okay, this is longer.
Anyway, well, good news, Adam. We are live because they're coming off of the International Incident pay-per-view. So this is going to be our first live and only live Raw for a few weeks. So we should take that for what it is. But we do not open with the show open. We open with the Smoking Guns entrance because they're supposed to be taking on HBK and Ahmed Johnson for the Tag Team Championships. They walk out, and then we go to the show open. Odd, but okay. Basically, we're setting up as they come out is Sonny's wheeling out a birthday cake because it is Shawn Michaels' birthday. Because we should have like a little check mark of every time in this episode where they just say "fuck Chris Candido." So basically, we come back for the show open. Shawn and Ahmed make their entrance. It's chaos to begin. Shawn hits Billy Gunn with Sweet Chin Music. Goes the outside where Sonny tries to hit him with the birthday cake. Ahmed gets her and smashes her face into it. So then Shawn licks the icing off of her face because check, fuck Chris Candido. And then Vince yells, he likes that icing. And then it's just pure chaos. And there's Shawn just does his pyro because fuck it. And we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's a very chaotic opening to the show. And as soon as I saw Sonny with that giant sheet cake, it was like, oh, okay, all right. We know where this is going. Not that I'm against it, but we were able to read the tea leaves on the sheet cake. A big old sheet cake, too.
It looked delicious. I wish I could have known it.
Mm-hmm.
He likes that icing. Lick it. Lick that icing, Shawn.
Oh,
yes.
man. Vince wished that he was Sonny so much in that moment, man.
Anyway, we go to commercial and we come back, and it's going to be the Goon versus Mark Miro, the Goon's debut. Infamous.
We've decided that we're not going to have that match right now.
So we cut back to Gorilla. Yeah, so that goes away. We cut back to Gorilla backstage, and he says that the tag team championship match will still happen, but later tonight, so Billy could get his brain together because he's all discombobulated.
How could you expect him to? How could you expect him to wrestle after all that?
Exactly. But yeah, so then we're in this match. Mark Miro, of course, comes out, and Cameron ignores him, just Sable. Match goes 7 minutes and 15 seconds, ends with a slingshot leg drop, which I like as a finisher.
Sure. And it was there was a good effort by Miro in this match, and for what it's worth, the Goon is pretty darn good worker, actually. I mean, he'd been, if you look back on what Bill Irwin's career was, I mean, he started in Mid-South in 1979. So he's been wrestling for almost 20 years at this point. He's a big dude.
Old school.
Yeah. So, like, he does not suck. This is not a Duke the Dumpster Drozy type of jobber, even though he has a Duke the Dumpster Drozy level.
The idea of it is, though, and that these weren't supposed to be jobbers necessarily. They were supposed to be taken seriously, which, I mean, this is a 7-minute match. They go back and forth. The burial of Mark Miro, even with the win, certainly continues. I mean, this is a joke, even though it's not supposed to be a joke. He's wrestling in hockey gear. He has pads on. At one point, he slips on the icing because, like, of course, the hockey player slips on ice. Vince, I'm sure, was howling in the production meeting when they came up with that spot.
There's also a ton of cake all over the ground out there. And
Yeah,
the
it's
ring
not joking.
itself is filthy at this point. If you look
It's
at the middle of the
disgusting.
mat, yeah, it is not a pristine area they're wrestling in.
Maybe they were filming a bunch before Raw happened. I don't know. It's gross. Anyway, during the match, Austin joins commentary like that. Austin is now pretty much in full-on Stone Cold, wearing the vest, got the necklace on, going off on people.
He used the
Jake Roberts.
term "can of whoop ass" during
Yes,
his
exactly.
commentary
Yes,
as
I wrote
well.
that
Might be our
down.
first time hearing that. Yeah.
Jake Roberts calls in on the phone. King, of course,
Boy.
rips him apart. He says that his tag team partner's with him. It's Jim Beam. I couldn't figure it out. Jake had some sort of accident and he's going to be out for 4 weeks. I didn't really understand what happened.
It's probably just related to his struggles. They're still making light of it. It's not comfortable. As soon as he called in and King started piping up, I was like, oh no.
I know it's not as bad as it was, but it's very bad. I mean, at least in the end of the day, it's leading to something. They are going to have a match. So it's not just for haha, kind of. Ugh. It's not good. Anyway, yeah, this match was. I wouldn't say it's bad. It was just stupid, and I think there's a difference.
It's just it doesn't matter in the end.
Right.
Like that's what it comes down to. Like those two could go out there and put out their best effort, which I think they did. Like I said, the Goon was a decent worker and Miro's moving, but.
The Goon is, but you could tell, I don't know if it's part of the gimmick or not, but you could tell he was very uncomfortable in that outfit trying to wrestle. Like even him just walking around.
Yeah.
Was not,
yeah.
For you people listening to podcasts, I'm just shimmying back and forth. Got to tell the visual story.
Right. Well, you can imagine what a hockey player looks like going around in full gear. Not that he is in full gear, but even his
pads on.
Yeah, and even his boots are like made to sort of look like skates.
Right. It's one of the dumbest things. You should watch it just to see one of the dumbest things you will ever see in professional wrestling.
Things until we get to the end of this episode.
There's a million dumb things on both these shows. It's a night full of it's a night full of debuts and dumb things. It's very odd that both of them went the same direction. But anyway, we'll get to it. Next up, we go backstage to Shawn and Ahmed. He says that the only action Sonny gets is from HBK. Check fuck Chris Candido. They talk about facing the Guns and taking the titles tonight. We come back, we see Bob Backlund in the stands campaigning, and it's next up, Freddie Joe Floyd making his Raw debut versus Mankind. This match goes 4 minutes. It's pretty much a squash. Mankind ends it with the mandible claw. Other things happened. We saw before the match started, we go earlier today, we see Clarence Mason trying to get Gorilla to hire somebody. We only see the back of this person, but they're discussing his criminal history. We see photos from last night's pay-per-view. Mankind getting involved in Taker Goldust match. He drags Taker to the back, down through the ring. Taker pops up. They brawl to the back. They end up in the boiler room, which leads to the boiler room brawl that they're going to have at SummerSlam. And Freddie Joe Floyd is Tracy Smothers. So another sort of like old school vet taking on this weird jobber gimmick.
They let him get in a couple of cool like back scissor kick things throughout the match, but this is obviously a Mankind mauling, mandible claw, done.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, yes, did he get off? He did get offense in, but it was short. He got his shit in. He ended up murdering him. It was very decisive on who won this match. But you want to let him get a little offense, and it's fine. But
yeah. And Mankind is good still. I'm enjoying the gimmick. They're still getting him over as this huge threat, which is great.
Yep.
And just the mandible claw looks so good.
It's scary. With that thing on his hand, it's scary.
Yeah.
Next up, we see Brian Pillman come to the ring as Mankind leaves. And we come back for our next match. It is Barry Horowitz versus Goldust with Marlena. This match goes 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Pillman is on commentary. The curtain call ends it. But during the match, we go backstage to Miro and Sable. He talks about facing Vader next week and Goldust at SummerSlam. I wrote Miro does a wrestling promo. He just yells.
Old
And
school.
my favorite line from Pillman in this was, Pillman says he can't say anything bad about Horowitz because he'll be called an anti-Semite.
My favorite line was right before that when he said, "I'd love to see Sonny and Marlena go after each other's carpets." And he goes, "I mean,
This
yeah,
was a squash, but it served its purpose, and I'm okay with it. It goes 2 minutes 15 seconds. It's squash, great.
exactly how it should be. Not 7 minutes."
No, a back and forth thing. Although, but Barry had a little thing going last year, and then they're like, "Fuck it," but whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
his theme music is Hava Nagila. Like, you can't get over that. I'm sorry.
that's right. That's right.
Like, like we come back from commercial, we see like the big shot of the arena, and all I hear is that music. I'm just like, oh god, here we go.
Yeah, it's not built to. There's so many gimmicks that are like you see them and you're like, this isn't built to main event. Now, not everyone can be the main event. Not everyone can be the marquee player, but like, goodness gracious,
And that wasn't even
come
his
on.
gimmick. His gimmick was always like positivity, Horowitz, like pat yourself on the back kind of thing. He just happened to be Jewish, so that became his gimmick. But like, it really wasn't his gimmick other than his last name. So whatever. I guess I should just be happy that there's a Jew wrestling.
Uh,
Next up, we go backstage to the Smoking Guns and Sunny. She still has cake all over her, and I'm here for it. She says something, but I am too distracted. And then Billy
new
yells something
titles.
too, and I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. And
Obviously,
Bart looks like the third wheel.
yeah. Did you watch Dark Side of the Ring this week about the Brawl for All?
Some clips about it, but I haven't watched it yet.
It's interesting sort of hearing Bart's side of the story about how he just sort of like very early on, so the writing on the wall of like, they're going to bury the shit out of me because I'm doing well. And he won, got nothing out of it. They waited 9 months and then had him get murdered by Butterbean. And Butterbean even admits, he's like, yeah, I heard Vince was pissed at Bart, so I was brought in to murder him. And that's what I did.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I need to watch. I need to just binge all the Dark Side of the Rings because they're very well produced. The
They're
ones that
great.
I've seen.
I'll give a shout out on JR's podcast, I believe from 2 weeks ago. JR was not involved, but they had Conrad interviewed the 2 executive producers from the show. Not finished with it yet, but it's very cool to see the inside story about how these episodes were produced, going through the first season and the second season. So that's a good listen to too. So go watch the show and then go listen to a little bit behind the scenes on Grilling JR. And I think it's only fair that we give him a shout, that he gives us a shout, but whatever.
We'll be looking for it. It's all good. Or come on the podcast if you want, JR. We'll talk.
Yeah. Ralph, I heard you making fun of me.
That was Jeremy, to be very clear. I'm very supportive of all of your work in All Elite Wrestling. Just putting it out there. Oh, by the way, tangent while we're doing it. Big news this week was the Revival getting their official releases from WWE. Do you think, this is what I think they should do? Do you agree with me that despite how excited everybody is to see them with their shackles off and get into it with, the tag team wrestling level that is at AEW right now, do you stay patient and wait until we have live arena matches again for getting that pop when those guys debut? Because part of me thinks you do.
Well, there's two sides. Yes, in general, I think so. I mean, also, I'm still confused on what has been taped for AEW and what hasn't been, and how much they've taped and how much they have. They might have a month and a half in a can anyway. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd be concerned about is honestly their rating last week. I don't understand why they keep dropping off. Like their shows, yeah, every show is affected by Raw and SmackDown and NXT has sort of almost stayed consistent, which is weird. But they're just hardcore. They don't really have anyone else watching that show. But it's interesting to me that AEW sort of seemed to figure it out how to do these type of wrestling shows, and 300,000 less people watched it. I don't really understand that. So I could see maybe they're like, what's going to give us a little pop? But I don't think the Revival gives them the pop of the people that they need. I think it gives the hardcore people a pop, but I don't think that's the audience they
isn't their audience the hardcore audience though? I mean, that's That's how
But
I've seen it.
AEW almost has more casual. I mean, AEW does have more casual than NXT. I think
Maybe.
I think a casual wrestling fan still looks like, well, NXT is like developmental. It's like, oh, a big time show. There's Chris Jericho. There's all these guys I know much more than NXT. I'll tune into that. I don't think it's a gigantic, but I think that's the difference between
I could see that. I
NXT
think,
staying consistent and AEW sort of going up and down a little bit.
yeah, well, it was also one of their weaker weeks as far as like announced matches go and stuff like that. And I think, I mean, we'll see, because next week they have Mox versus Hager for the title, and you know, a title match usually brings some people in. So and you know, it's just crazy right now because it depends on what's going on in the world, right? Like, no one's able to hold on to their ratings right now. Some of the
Which is
top shows on
odd.
cable right now are not even cracking the top 20 on
Which
their
is
normal nights.
which is weird to me because I don't know what are people watching. I don't know. They have nothing else to do. If anything, numbers should be up. I mean, I understand there's entertainment everywhere, like always. They're not fucking watching Quibi. So, like, where have they got? What new entertainment has popped up?
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
No, yeah,
That's a whole other
nobody's
podcast.
watching Quibi.
No, they're not. A lot of friends worked in Quibi shows. I had a development for a Quibi show. Never came out. It never happened. But
Then I hate them even more than I was already. If they
they just made weird decisions. Like I see the food. I don't want to say anything bad about this, because I haven't watched this show, so it's not fair for me. But I see the shows, and I'm like, I should be the audience. It's not a teenager audience. It is a disposable income 20, 30-year-old audience who's now used to watching shit at the phone. And I've seen every show, and I'm like, maybe if it was on, I would check it out. But you have to pay for this app. It's not just on. I don't really know what they have to do. I mean, listen, if they have a strategy of we're ahead of the curve and in 5 years we're going to be huge, which could very well be the case, and they just want to be early on this, great. But nothing that they've put out so far has been like, oh, I have to watch that.
biggest gripe with it all is the marketing campaign is just beating us over the head with trying to make like see you in a Quibi as far as like
it's funny. I mean, it doesn't really tell you about the show. Some of them tell you about the shows. I mean, WWE has a show coming out with them.
Oh man, we gotta watch the Big Show show. Speaking of,
Do we have to watch the Big Show show?
Oh,
It's apparently trending
so.
on Netflix. It's doing very well. I'll check out an
Good.
episode.
Well, good. All right, where were we even on
Here we go. We then see we go to the ring as Vince is interviewing Vader and Corny. They talk about Vader facing Shawn at SummerSlam because Vader pinned Shawn last night at the pay-per-view. And then we see a Olympic parody SummerSlam commercial, which is pretty funny. And then it's time for our main event. The WWF Tag Team Championships are on the line. This time naturally happens. Smoking Guns versus Shawn and Ahmed. Jose Authority is out there too. Match goes 15 minutes. But at the end, we see Farooq making his WWF debut. He runs out, attacks Ahmed Johnson to cause the DQ. Farooq is in full gladiator getup, plastic helmet, and his gear is not flattering for anybody. His gear is like the singlet that like Taz and Pete Dunne wear, where it's like it doesn't really, it like rides up on you a little bit. It's a hard look to pull off. And I don't know if Ahmed, I mean, he's a big beefy boy. There's got to be better gear to show that off. And the helmet is just ridiculous.
It's funny. Also, King goes for a second. He goes, "I think that kind of looks like Ron Simmons."
Yes, yeah. Vince is like, "Who is this man?" And King is like, "Oh, no, yeah, it looks like Ron Simmons." The base match. Before the match starts, it's funny. They have a superstar line promo. They're a little call in, and they're polling the audience, and the question is, "Will SummerSlam be Taker's last match?" Which gave me a chuckle since we're 25 years later or whatever the fuck we are, still in it. But it was, I mean, I actually thought the match is pretty good. Shawn sells like a champ because he is the goddamn champ. And he finally gets a hot tag to Ahmed, and the arena erupts. I thought it was kind of fun.
It's your WWE hot tag spot match that it's the standard hot tag team match that we've seen a billion times, but it's fine. It's well done. There's not too much to pick apart about it that you can go, oh, this is bullshit or whatever. It's a main event that you've seen before.
But with
And
Shawn in 1996 mode, it's good. You
uh,
know?
yeah, it's like on Twitter when someone asked the other day, what is the which Shawn Michaels is the best Shawn Michaels, and Will Ospreay responded, the one when he was on the most drugs.
I mean,
Is that wrong?
he has such classics later on too, but he could go back and forth. I mean, obviously the most athletic he ever was in 1996 doing all this shit. So it makes sense. Anyway, but yeah, that's the end of Raw. You know, as much as anyway, as Ron or Farooq leaves, we see Sonny congratulating him. So we see that pairing of Sonny and Farooq is going to be something down the line or now. You know, for all like the weirdness on the show and nothing super standing out, I kind of enjoyed it. I don't know. It had a good pace. The energy of the crowd was good. It was live. They had the story play out throughout the whole episode, the Shawn thing. They built very quickly what the matches were going to be at SummerSlam. They weren't matches that came out of nowhere. They were continuing all these feuds that we've been seeing, but they're building for the pay-per-view. Is there anything to go back and watch? No, but I actually thought it was a pretty decent episode of Raw considering what we've been seeing.
I think was its strongest thing. It did move along at enough of a pace when I was done with it, and I was looking back on it. I was not feeling like anything was as much of a slog as, even though we talked some shit about the Goon versus Miro. Like, Goon versus Miro was fine. It's two guys. So it's like, again, it's not Duke the Dumpster Drosy out there. It's someone who's actually like moving around and hitting pretty hard and stuff like that. So it's definitely not good. And like you said, it's not unless you're like really the world's biggest Shawn Michaels mark and you want to see them celebrate his birthday throughout an
No.
episode for a couple of times. That's really the only thing that's unique about this episode of Raw. And I guess you have Farouk's debut, which is a significant thing, not as significant as it should be, considering, Raw African American World Heavyweight Champion and all this other stuff. Like, he should be a bigger deal than he was, but debuting like this with that fucking gear, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he looks like an idiot. I really don't understand. I don't understand why he would be a gladiator, and I don't understand why a gladiator would wear a foam helmet. Why not just get him a real helmet?
Yeah, it's like one that fits like that too. It just like fits like kind of crooked and weird, and then like
Yeah, he looks like a parody. He looks like he should be another fucking goon jobber.
It's like a cartoon character.
Well,
Like, you know what? I got a theory. They made the action figure first, and then they were like, "Well, shit."
no, even more so. They had the character first. They're like, we gotta have this. We gotta have this gladiator. And then they saw Ron Simmons walk in, and they're like, this is it. This is it. So then they're like, fuck it, we don't really care. Every idea we had, slap on to him. I guess it's, I mean, the same thing. Like, I'm sure they had the Goon character, and then like, who could fit this thing? I guess, whatever, this guy could do it. Freddie Joe. I don't know. I don't really understand what the fuck was the name? Freddie Joe Floyd. Freddie Joe Floyd. Why wasn't he just Tracy Smothers? Why was he just, let's give him some random white person name? Okay.
I mean, I guess you can't tarnish the good name of Tracy Smothers. I guess they don't want you going back.
Put him under a mask then. It's his face.
Yeah. Well, and he was definitely like, you're right. Like, he was not a nobody at all. Like,
Into the WWF audience, I guess, kind of. But then if he's only kind of to the WWF audience, then bring him in under his real name. Hey, here is a vet coming in to wrestle. If he loses, he loses. But at least it's better than this up-and-comer Freddie Joe Floyd.
I remember some of his Smoky Mountain Wrestling stuff actually when we were logging. And did we logged USWA also, right? Back in the day?
We must have. They own that, I believe.
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, they bought that. They bought that from the Jarretts at some point. I'm pretty sure because I think the Jarretts ended up with it.
Okay, because I'm trying to remember like if we watched that as well. Because I remember seeing Tracy Smothers stuff and being like, oh yeah, this guy's a badass, but he's definitely not as the Goon.
No. So that's Raw. A night of debuts. Like I said, I thought an enjoyable show. nothing to go back to. But I thought, I don't know, maybe I just woke up in a good fucking mood this morning. But I thought it was okay.
Yeah, maybe so. I didn't hate it.
No, definitely didn't hate it, especially what we've seen. But want to move on to WCW?
I would love to.
Great, Adam. This is episode 45. Once again, we are live in Disney MGM Studios in Orlando, Florida. Tony and Larry open the show. They talk about Muhammad Ali because, again, the reason they are in Orlando filming is because this is during the time of the Olympics. They couldn't hire their normal crew. The only way to get crew is use Disney people. That's why we see them here for a few weeks. Anyway, Muhammad Ali lit the torch last night, so they talk about that. They show footage of Muhammad Ali at a WCW event last year. Very close ties to Turner, very close ties to WCW over the years. Then we see footage of Shaq with Hogan from years ago, talking about, and they're like, well, I wonder what Shaq's going to think of Hogan joining the NWO, which they're not getting back to, so it's a weird thing to bring up. I think they just wanted to be like, look, he apparently just signed with the Lakers, so it's like a news story, I guess, to show Shaq. And we see footage
WCW loves doing that in general. They love taking in like real athletes and tying them into their stuff. You know,
right. Legitimized. They want to be a legitimate league.
Yeah.
And then we see footage of the NWO from last week.
Yeah. And then lots of old stuff, and we're gonna see our Bash Beat stuff a bunch again this show. It's just well, I won't spoil. Let's get through it. Let's walk on through.
No spoilers. Okay. Anyway, first match is Squire Dave Taylor with G's versus Scott Norton. Match goes 1 minute and 45 seconds. Fire and Ice is officially over, and that's when we find out during the match. And Scott Norton tosses Dave Taylor over the top ropes to their DQ after, like I said, 1 minute and 45 seconds. And then they just continue to fight him. Whatever.
Yeah. This is it was odd because this is a pretty weak way to open the show. It's Scott Norton's second week in a row of opening the show, actually, because last week it was Fire and Ice versus the Steiner brothers. Mm-hmm. But just thinking about the drop off in quality from our first week where we had at MGM, where we had Rey Mysterio versus Dean Malenko, you know, like that was a real,
I will say,
a real hot opener. And then you have this where it's just your over the top rope DQ BS.
This is the stupidest thing in wrestling. Thank God they got rid of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up, Mean Gene interviews the Four Horsemen minus Ric Flair. They're at the VIP table. Gene's asking where Flair is, and Arn says that, Flair always likes to make an entrance. He will be here. Mongo says Mongo things about facing it's going to be the Four Horsemen versus Macho Man, Sting, and Lex Luger tonight.
Yeah, and he calls them the pretty boys, and he wants to go after pretty boys.
Yes, as I said, Mongo says Mongo things.
That's right.
Because they only make sense to Mongo and in his head. And then Benoit says, of course, Benoit things. He's silent but violent. They should just edit out
complete sentences.
Yeah. I don't want to see it. But yeah, so where's Rick? We'll find out, or maybe we won't. Let's see.
Was this also, sorry, I was just thinking, was this also our first time that we've seen Nancy Benoit with her hands on Chris Benoit's shoulders? Because I saw him at the VIP table, and Woman and Benoit were getting pretty close.
I don't remember. Maybe.
It struck me as like the first time that we'd really seen those two on Nitro. I'm sure that it's happened elsewhere with her Horseman involvement and with, his feud with Kevin Sullivan and everything like that. But
so,
as far as I can tell, first time on Nitro that I saw that.
Sullivan was on Corny's podcast this week and cleared up a couple of the questions that we had about stuff. Even though he said he didn't want to be part of the show because he doesn't want to talk about it, the incident, he sort of does talk about it here, which is weird, but whatever. Two things he cleared up.
It's usually a bad, I was just going to say, like, having produced television where, like, you're presenting someone's side of things, they clearly reached out to him to get him to be part of it. And really, like, it's when it comes to something like that, I know it sucks because you're kind of backed into a corner, but like, if you have your side of the story, you should tell your side of the story. He should have accepted their invite to be on that.
What he has said in the interview was that he's never done something specifically about Benoit and Nancy out of respect to Nancy's parents. He said that from the beginning when it happened, and he's going to continue with that now. So while he touched on things with Corny, because it wasn't specifically about that, he's thought that would be okay to be part of. But he's just, his stance is, I don't want to dig stuff up from the past. But a few things he cleared up. One, he says that Nancy's black eye was not from him. He said that they had actually been separated for, at this point where we are in 1996, for like a year and a half, where he was living in the Keys and she was living in Orlando or Tampa or something. So they weren't even living together. Because sort of the narrative we've discussed here and what sort of we remember is like, oh, you know, they put Benoit and Nancy together, and then, you know, then of course started cheating on each other. And Sullivan was like, no, you know, we were separated for so long at that point. He didn't believe Benoit would be with Nancy at all, because at the time during this period, Chris was still married to his first wife and she was pregnant. So Sullivan never would have assumed that that would be who Nancy would start having a relationship with. But by this point, they were completely done, just not divorced. So cleared up a little bit of the timeline thing that we had discussed, and a little bit of the questioning we had discussed, and puts into question too, like when we were talking about how like real their fight was. I think now looking back at it, it wasn't really animosity at all. It was just sort of like, that was Benoit's style, and Sullivan was a lunatic, and they probably were just like, let's just go at each other and make this shit as real as possible, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that makes some sense, because you're right, they were lunatics. And I mean, even when we see Benoit's style tonight, he was, well, we'll get
Benoit's
to that.
style every night. Anyway, where the hell are we? Menus. Okay, so VK Wall Street versus the Mexican champion Conan.
Doesn't have a belt.
No, I wrote that down too. They pump him up as the Mexican champion, but then he doesn't have his belt with them. I was like, what's the difference?
Yeah, what's the point? Yeah.
Anyway, VK hits the stock market crash, but then Conan is able to reverse it into a crucifix pin for the win.
Not a lot of exciting highlights from this match, but it was kind of like a hard-hitting, old-school, tie him up, stretch him out kind of match for the most part. And these boys were sweating. It must have been a damp night there in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, this is late July. It's probably humid as fucking gross. Another note was like Conan's gears. Like, he's wearing like a frilly, I don't know, I don't get it. Maybe it's like a Mexican thing. I didn't want to, just like maybe that's traditionally what they would wear.
It's so random. It just feels thrown together, all of it. You know, even
it's odd.
Even this mask that he wears out that he's not really wearing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's the match. It was, I mean, VK Wall Street's the most boring character in wrestling history, so it is what it is. I have nothing else to say. Next up, Mean Gene talks to Sting, Luger, and Savage. They talk about Flair not being there yet. Luger talks about wanting to make a statement tonight. Savage yells about facing Hogan, Flair, the Outsiders, and let's just battle tonight. He's like, bring them all out. I'll take them all out. I don't care.
Yeah, it's the exact promos that you expect from these guys at this time. Talking to Mean Gene, I mean, we've seen this same promo so many times at this point. And yeah, I mean, they have a pay-per-view to sell, and they are definitely hitting on Hog Wild.
Every other word out of Bischoff's mouth is about Sturgis, because I mean, Eric loves Sturgis, so as much as he can talk about Sturgis, he's going to talk about selling the pay-per-view and whatnot.
I know. I wish I loved anything as much as Eric Bischoff loves Sturgis.
Yes. Anyway, next up, we get a new Glacier promo. I said I wouldn't talk about Glacier until he debuts, but it's a new promo. We get to sort of see him doing stuff, so we'll talk about it now. One of two we see tonight. But then, Adam, we get to one of the most glorious things in wrestling history. And I'll say this. I'll pull the curtain back a little bit on this episode. I've discovered, Adam, that these summer episodes of Nitro are on YouTube. So now, why would I watch these episodes on YouTube instead of the WWF Network? Well, for one good reason. You could watch them at 1.5 speed, so I could get through them faster, especially a 2-hour Nitro. So I always have my notes open. I've said this too, that I open up 411 Mania had done a column years ago comparing the two episodes. So I usually have those notes open with me just in case I missed something or whatever it is, just so I can have reference something. So I'm watching it on YouTube, And I go back to notes, and he's talking about this insane video package. And I was like, what is this? And I realized that the YouTube is cutting out the stuff not in the matches. I was like, fuck. So I can't watch these things on YouTube anymore because it's cutting out. So I went back to the network, opens it back up, rewatched what I missed, which would have been this thing, which is a video. So our next match is going to be Alex Wright, Jim Powers, Joe Gomez, and Renegade versus Dungeon of Doom. So to hype it, we get a video package of Alex Wright, Powers, Gomez, and Renegade walking on a Disney resort. And I know it's a Disney resort because I just stayed at that one where they were, in slow motion, ripping their shirts off, walking around, getting sun, just like basking in their glory. It is one of the weirdest things in wrestling history.
Like if they were making, if they made Baywatch, but like a strictly homosexual version of Baywatch, like just straight up, like it's got vibes, man.
It's just funny. It's for these guys too. All these guys who they've been trying to push so hard as these big white baby faces, but like Alex Wright has shown some initiative into stuff, but pretty much has been a bore. He shows like skills, but has been sort of nothing.
Yeah, his matches are athletic.
And like, what have we seen of like who are the others? He's like Joe Gomez. Like he gets beat up every fucking week since making his debut. Like it's just odd, but it gets odder because this whole segment's very weird. So anyway, so then they come out. Next up, it's a Dungeon of Doom. It's Barbarian, Hugh Morris, Kevin Sullivan, and they announced that there's going to be a new member of the Dungeon of Doom. And who is it, Adam? Well, it's the Leprechaun, Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, who I believe was the head trainer of the power plant. So it makes sense to have him in this match because these are all power plant dudes, and maybe to get them comfortable in the ring, having that guy they work with every single day. But don't worry, we don't really have to watch any of this match because as soon as the match starts,
as a crazy, it'd make him more comfortable to have him as a crazy leprechaun who's biting on their feet and stuff like that.
Sure, like worse than Hornswoggle level, almost. He's not even that short. I mean, he's probably shorter, but not like a little person like Hornswoggle. Anyway, as soon as the match starts, they yell that something's going on in the back. So we literally see the cameraman just leave ringside. He goes, "Nah, fuck this match," and walks back. We follow the cameraman. We go backstage and we see the Outsiders in the control truck as he starts to just fuck around and hit buttons. They're yelling at the director. They pretty much take over the show. They're calling camera shots. They say that they're looking for the friends in the crowd. Scan the crowd. Scan the crowd. Meanwhile, like there's all these like weird audio issues going on. It was actually played really well where them standing in the truck really wouldn't cause audio issues, but they made it seem like it was causing all these issues. Finally, security comes and they get them out of there. And this whole thing takes like, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes or something.
Takes
ignoring
as
the
long
match
as
the
a match
entire
would
time.
take. Yeah.
Yeah, ignoring the match the entire time. We're back there with the Outsiders. Finally, we come back to the ring. Teddy Long comes down and chat with Jim Powers. I literally wrote down when Teddy Long comes out, oh, he's talking to Joe Gomez. Because guess what? They all look the fucking same.
Sure do.
And then finally, to end the madness, Giant comes out and just starts murdering people. He's like, chokeslam for you, chokeslam for you, chokeslam for you. And this whole segment is over. It's hard to call this a match, but it happens.
To make sense after you see how this went down, why the match was an 8-man tag match with, Braun the Leprechaun, which is, according to Wikipedia, that was his full name, was Braun the Leprechaun.
Not just the Leprechaun.
Yeah, it's Braun the Leprechaun. And
Gotcha.
You were right. He was the head trainer for the power plant.
Okay, that makes sense. But anyway, Mean Gene comes into the ring to chat with Giant. Talk about Hogan's challenge last week. Giant accepts and sort of turns face, I guess. I mean, he came in the ring and destroyed all the faces, but in this promo, he turns face, says that he would chokeslam Hogan in the middle of the ring, and the crowd just erupts chanting. And you're like, well, Hogan's the biggest bad guy, and Giant said he's going to murder him, so I guess he's a face now.
Yeah, I mean, he cut a face promo too. Everyone cheered for him. It was, he's talking about how he's going to be ready for Hogan, and Hogan's obviously everyone's bad guy right now. So I guess even though he's still in the Dungeon of Doom, the Giant is face now. Yeah,
Weird times in WCW. Shades of gray, Adam. You got your good guys and you got your bad guys. I can't wait till we get to that episode. Anyway, next up it's DDP versus Prince Ieukea. Prince Ieukea making his Nitro debut. No entrance for either guy. That's not a good sign. Match goes 1 minute 45 seconds. Diving cutter out of nowhere ends it. That's it. I don't know. You got anything else about that
Else
one?
to talk about it? No. It's always good to see DDP super over as usual. Um, Ieukea is selling his ass off.
Ooh, you know what I should have done since I had that YouTube thing open? I wonder if the cut that's on YouTube is from the original broadcast and I could have heard what DDP's real music was.
Okay. Well, if we can find DDP's real music, that should
I bet you it's
maybe
on
help.
that. I bet you that cut that's on YouTube is not from the network. I bet you it is the original broadcast. I'll go look back and look at it. Anyway, next up, we get a video package of the Benoit Sullivan feud. We already talked about that. Them fighting in the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. And then it's Dean Malenko versus Chavo Guerrero. Another debut for tonight. This is the night of debuts, folks. Chavo's debut. Match goes 8 minutes and ends when Chavo comes off the top rope, misses, and Dean is able to turn it into the Texas Cloverleaf for the win. During the match, we go to hour 2, so we go to Eric and Bobby. Eric's mic is too loud, and Bobby's mic isn't working, playing off of the idea that the Outsiders fucked around with stuff, which I kind of like that. I enjoy that. Lots of fireworks, and I just kind of said, it's technically really good. I couldn't get into the match for some reason. There's something missing about this match.
It was. I mean, the hard hitting technical stuff is really cool, and like, but and there's a couple of real big top rope moments that I enjoyed. Like, it's kind of like when it got later on, I was enjoying it a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like we know both of these guys could have way better matches. So sort of them going through the motions a little bit for 8 minutes doesn't get me, especially when we've seen so much better out of Dean and we know what Chavo could do. Maybe my expectation was too high for this match.
Better match with just these two guys, actually.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, not bad in any way, shape, or form. Chavo gets his big debut, looks good in the match. Again, Dean making people look good, but in the end, getting the win, which is what these matches should be.
Right.
Sign of a true professional wrestler.
And
Next up,
man, when you're hearing the reaction that some of the people are having for just having a Guerrero out there, like it's you'll see why they are stepping on the gas with these guys in the future. I mean, it's cool to see Chavo.
I mean, I agree. One note I wrote down throughout this show was like, you sort of expect when you see these like weird Disney shows or places like that, the arena or the stands not being full of real wrestling fans, more of just like curiosity or walking through the park. What is this kind of stuff?
Right.
I'd say
yeah.
the fans have been really involved in this and really getting behind not the big name people like, they all know Sting is, but we'll see like in the Eddie match, they are solidly behind Eddie. They play along to boo the heels and cheer the faces. And they seem to be, I mean, these people are like going wild in the stands. They are truly into these matches and these superstars. Yeah. And it's kind of odd thing. You wouldn't think that at this park, but they were all big old wrestling marks.
There's these kind of, they look like they could be brothers, maybe 12 and 13-year-old boys in the front row. And throughout the whole show, they're like chopping each other.
Oh,
they're punching each other. Yeah, you saw the kid with the bright neon shirt, just like chopping his brother. Oh, it's good stuff.
Anyway, next up we go back to Eric and Bobby. They talk about Hogan and Giant facing off at Sturgis, and then it's Mang with Jimmy Hart versus Ice Train. Match goes 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Scott Norton comes out and takes out Mang, causing a DQ. But I am confused because Fire and Ice broke up, and we were already told that Ice Train is facing off against Scott Norton at Sturgis. What is happening? Well, Scott Norton yells at the camera that he has Ice Train's back until the pay-per-view. Sure.
I mean, we're getting our stupid like actual storylines with Scott Norton still. Somehow Scott Norton has been able to but I mean, even in the previous years, Scott Norton versus the Shark, he's always able to somehow finagle his way into being part of a not a good feud, but what's the word I'm looking for?
A nice middle card feud. A nice middle card.
Yeah.
At least has something happening.
Yeah, something that like makes sense. He's a cohesive story. He's always able to be part of that somehow. But it's Scott Norton, so like
My other
we see
thing,
friends
Eric,
with.
as Ming comes out, Eric says that only 100 years ago, the Samoans were cannibals. I did try and do some research on that. I was like, that's a horrible thing to say, but I was like, you know what? Let me give Eric the benefit of the doubt. Let me research this a little bit. I don't believe they were cannibals at any point. So,
Well, they like that's been a thing that I've heard about Samoans forever. I've never really done the research myself.
yeah, I mean, I
So
couldn't find any information either way that came from very reputable sources, but what it seemed to be was just these like folklores that were passed down forever and ever. And I don't believe they did like chop off people's heads when they were at war with each other, but that was different than eating them. So, Eric, check your facts if you're going to say something like that. I mean, I had nothing else to say about this one. It was a big old hoss battle was my other note.
these guys were excited to punch each other. That's for sure.
Yes.
Like to punch each other.
Next up, we get a video package about the formation of the NWO and all their actions up to this point. It goes into another Glacier package, same one as before. Next, we got Psychosis versus Eddie Guerrero. This match goes 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Frankensteiner leads into the Frog Splash, which leads into the win for Eddie. Like I said before, huge Eddie chance, fun back and forth. I thought this was it like a 5-star excellent classic? No, but it was a fun back and forth high flying match.
Was Eddie's way over. It makes you find it all that much more silly that WCW never made moves on this guy to make him the guy. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, we'll get through all of the problems that WCW had with Nash and Hogan just keeping everybody in a stranglehold, and Goldberg when he gets there and everything like that. I mean, granted, they had to ride the Goldberg train while it was there.
But Eric's point has always been not that he didn't see something in Eddie and those guys. His point was, let's look at the main event scene. You have Hogan, Hall, Nash, Luger, Giant, Sting, I'm sure Savage. You have all these dudes. So even if you say Eddie is there, Eddie's still number 10. That was Eric's point always, was like, listen, I think it's a little bit bullshit. But his point was, would you have Eddie ahead of any of those guys? Skill-wise, of course. Over-wise, promo-wise, we haven't heard anything from Eddie. Presence-wise, someone to build the company around wise, did he have it all there? Yeah, I mean, I think now we know he did, but I don't know if he showed those signs then. And who are you going to, and like, listen, they had him facing off against Flair. They had him facing, maybe it's for the U.S. title, but they had him in the semi or the upper mid card. And that's where you put a guy like that until he's ready to take on. And it's hard to leapfrog 10 guys.
I think people need their shot eventually to go up there with those kind of guys and see how they can ride with it. And he never really got that shot in WCW, but I mean, they're chanting his name. He's over as hell. And this match has like some really cool spots, especially got the final 2 splashes that ended this match. Psychosis' one and Guerrero's Frog Splash, just like full on. Did not take an ounce of their body out of that weight when they went on each other.
Absolutely. Next up, it is our main event, Sting, Luger, Savage versus the 4 Horsemen. So we see Arn, Benoit, and Mongo come out, but still no Ric Flair. We come back and we see a white limo in the back, and Arn's there like staring at it. He's trying to figure out who's in there. Eric and Bobby are trying to put together, is this Flair's? Is this Hogan's? Is Flair now in the NWO? Obviously, they're still teasing another member. Is this what's happening?
Who's the 4th man?
Who's the 4th man? We'll find out. But anyway, so of course, Mongo takes Flair's place because, of course, he does. Match goes 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Women and Deborah are fighting over the briefcase, and Savage finally gets his hands on his briefcase, takes it, knocks out Benoit, allowing Luger to pin him for the win. I thought that this match was it's like all these big old WCW tag team matches. They're fun, and Mongo looked terrible and brought down the entire thing. Otherwise, it's very solid and very fun.
He almost killed Sting with how he was like dropping him accidentally a couple
I
of
mean,
times.
Bruce Pritchard has talked about this before, where when you get on people for botches, it almost makes it now look like it's more of a real fight, which Mongo sort of does. Like if you were in a real fight, what Mongo did would do, but you can't look at it like that. Like Mongo is clearly botching and nearly killing people in the ring. I can't enjoy it when I really think that these guys are getting hurt.
And also, it's not with somebody who I'm enjoying watching. I was enjoying. I enjoyed Mongo for 2 weeks when we'd finally figured out to make him a clown, a cocaine clown. That's when he was at his best. But they just spent so much time just keeping him out of the ring in this match. Benoit is just like chopping the shit and suplexing the shit out of Sting, man. He is hitting him hard. And when Macho hits him with the Halliburton, he hits him just as hard. If you hear that,
it's a thump.
Just boom. He knocked him the fuck out. But yeah, anyway, this is a fun match. This is a fun tag match.
I mean, we've seen this kind of match before, but nothing wrong with it. It's still pretty fun. So we go to commercial. We come back. Mean Gene is in the ring. Sting, Luger, and Savage. They're talking about the Outsiders facing National Hall. Sting and Luger facing the Outsiders at Sturgis. Mean Gene stinks everyone, and that's the end of the show. And I'm like, wasn't a whole point of the show building toward the NWO coming out and the limo and answers and where Flair is, and he sort of builds up. Like you come back from the match to have the confrontation or something happen. And Mean Gene's like, that's it. Thank you guys. See you later. And I was like, huh? Wait, what? That's the end of the show? Nothing. What a weird way to peter out. Like, if you're not going to end with the chaos at the end of the match, why do you come back? Like, you come back because you're thinking, or at least in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, here we fucking go. Oh no, just like a 1 minute promo pitching Sturgis, and that's it. I'm like, what a downer.
I was totally prepared for all that too, and I was like looking at the timeline on the bottom of the player, like seeing like, wait, there's only a minute and 10 seconds left of this show. Nobody's come out of that limo yet. Nobody's like,
right. No one. They didn't even bring it up. Mean Gene wasn't. Who do you think is in the limo? They didn't even talk about it. After Arn went away from the limo and they discussed a little bit at the beginning of the match. They never even talked about it again. Can't someone just go knock on it? Send the PA. I don't fucking know. It's odd that they were just ignored.
Do you think National Hall were even there that day when they did like the stuff with the production truck and stuff like that?
Yeah. Where else are they?
Because Giant was there last week, as he mentioned.
Well, they were in Japan, remember?
Right.
But yeah, sort of, I watched Raw and I was kind of surprised. I was like, did I like this Raw? And then I watched Nitro and I was like, did I like Raw better? And I think I kind of did. I just think that Raw felt good, had a good pace, and there's nothing match-wise, there's nothing that bad in Nitro. I just think the disappointment of like building towards this moment, it didn't happen. It just sort of petered out. I was like just left with, or even Raw, I was like, okay, I see all the matches coming up. Pretty fun show, blah, 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 blah. Where WCW sort of like didn't advance anything. And I understand they like these questions or whatever, but I don't think they had enough amazing matches or amazing moments to overcome sort of fucking with the audience a little bit in that show.
I see your point there, but I did still enjoy Psychosis Guerrero and Four Horsemen match at the end a lot more than I really enjoyed things from Raw. And so if you're giving this one to Raw, I'm giving it to Nitro, but like just by a hair.
I think maybe my expectations for Raw were so low that because they were better, I feel better about it. Where my expectation from Nitro is kind of, pretty high after we finally seen Hogan come out last week and down to there. So maybe in the scheme of things, Nitro is better, but I just felt better about Raw this week.
Right. That's totally fair. It was a disappointing Nitro, but I still feel like it was overall had more things to enjoy. And like, I'd actually suggest to check out a couple of things from this because they were so unique or even dumb and funny, like the weird ass video package we were talking about. And then
you should go back and just watch that White Meat Babyface video package. It's strange.
And then Hall and Nash were in the control room and stuff like that. Like at least there was like a lot of new stuff. Like Raw was really just like, let's celebrate Shawn Michaels' birthday and let's debut Farooq, who, boom,
And the Goon.
and the
And
Goon,
Freddie Joe, whatever
and
the fuck his name was.
Freddie Joe Floyd.
Anyway, so you're going to Nitro, though?
Yeah, I'm still sticking with Nitro.
All right, well, the audience of the night, we all know Nitro won. Nitro go to 2.6 and Raw go to 2.2, so closing the gap a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, if there was any night to close the gap, this is the night.
That's true. Well, let me plug my shit, and then we'll say any last words. Guys who listen to this podcast, make sure, wherever you're listening to this podcast, make sure you're finally subscribed. Whether maybe you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed. You have some other fun videos, like the video, comment below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review. That would be lovely. Tweet at us Monday Night Pod. Instagram at us Monday Night Pod. Facebook at us Monday Night Pod. I don't know why you would Facebook at us. I don't know if that's a thing, but you could find us on Facebook. You can email us at info@MondayNightPod if you have any thoughts. Nothing really to tease on our end. But any last thoughts on the battle from this week?
Like I said, I don't think either brought their A game. I appreciate some of the things that we're trying, but like, man, if they didn't bring Farooq in some cartoony way, he could have had a whole different career. Like, if you really think about it, and we're getting into a very interesting time in Raw also, because we're getting to times where like probably Vader should have been made champion, and he basically bullied out of the spot by a drugged up Shawn Michaels. But we'll get to all of that, and I am excited to do so, my friend.
Absolutely. All right, guys. On that note, I like people get to see us. It gets to be a different level. If you watch us on YouTube, whatever. I don't know why I said any of that. Anyway, guys. Bye, guys.